Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
What's up, everybody? This is your co-host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile. I'm just your average podcast-producing badass.
And I'm John Thomas. If it's haunted, cursed, or just plain weird, I'm into it. From paranormal encounters to horror movie deep dives, urban legends, cryptids, count me in.
I'm DJ Sewura, an aspiring paranormal musician who plays live for the dead because the living just doesn't want to hear me.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our paranormal pals out there? In today's episode, we're going beyond the veil with special returning guests, XX Paranormal Communications. Let's see what spooky tales we reveal from the other side. Welcome back, XX Paranormal.
Thank you so much for having us again.
Hi.
So glad to have you on. And our listeners who have been with us for the past 6 seasons remember XX Paranormal, but we also have some new faces with us. The team has expanded.
We have. That was much needed. I went out on maternity leave October, November of 2024, and Ayana stepped in and helped out the team. Julia is unfortunately still kind of on a sabbatical, dealing with some family things. And yeah, we needed some more girl power on the team to help us move forward with goals that we have for this year. So Lana is also a new face, and she will be joining us on her first investigations this year.
Congratulations. And also, that's terrifying. You're so brave, Lana.
I know, I'm pretty nervous, actually. I think my first real investigation is coming up soon, so.
It's very exciting. And we also have Christine back.
Yes, hello.
Hello. Now, for our new friends and also for our new listeners, let's have Mackenzie and Christine also answer this. How long have you been in the paranormal world? Doesn't necessarily mean having to have investigated, but just how long have you been interested in the paranormal?
I've been interested in the paranormal probably since a teenager, kind of started watching the shows, had an experience when I was a child, and so have always been interested in it, but started investigating in 2011.
And I would say pretty much my whole life. Grew up hearing stories of my grandmother going to seances and things happening there that terrified my mom, and was always just fascinated about it. And yeah, started investigating in around, it was 2013, 2014. And Mackenzie and I met soon after that. So luckily, we've actually been investigating together for over a decade now. We can say that.
Yeah, time flies.
Ayana?
Hi, this is Ayana. I grew up in Louisiana, so I feel like every single person I know and knew growing up there had a story except for me. But, my sister and I, we grew up reading scary stories to tell in the dark or watching Are You Afraid of the Dark? We've always loved spooky things. And then it was around 2013 that I had my first experience working at a haunted cafe and bakery in Prescott, Arizona. And it was something that I was really calling in. I was kind of egging it on, not in a pokey way, but just like, okay, if you're here, like, let's go. I want to see. And I definitely saw. So ever since then, I've been really interested and just kind of realized it's a little bit of a mutual relationship, that energy exchange. And, so yeah, since then, and then I joined XX, like Mackenzie was saying, God, what was that? Mid 2024, September 2024, which is wild. It's 2026. I feel like I just got started, but yeah, that's my background.
What about you, Lana? I know you haven't gone on an investigation yet, but how long have you been intrigued in the paranormal?
Always. I think my earliest memories are being involved in some sort of ghost hunt or watching a scary movie or listening to a scary story. So I think I had a couple experiences when I was young, and just growing up in that environment and having it kind of fostered by my parents and my curiosity, I think I've just always been interested in it. So I was really fortunate to reach out to XX and get an opportunity to start learning from them and investigating with them. And I'm so excited to see what we're going to learn and find.
Now, you mentioned that your parents were helping kind of foster it. In what way?
I think they always just kind of nurtured my curiosity. I remember like being really young and hearing Hotel California on the radio. My mom's like, "Oh, you know it's about ghosts, right?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love it even more." So she kind of always like allowed my curiosity and my imagination to kind of play in that space, even though it was kind of not very normal for a child my age. But because I had those experiences and saw things that other people couldn't understand, but my mom recognized that it wasn't just my imagination, I think she kind of just always trusted me and therefore gave me the trust in myself to kind of explore the possibilities of my curiosity in that realm.
Ayana, you brought up that you had your first paranormal experience in a bakery cafe in Prescott, and you saw something. Now, you know we're going to ask. Tell us more. Like,
Yeah.
what did you see?
All right, I'm gonna give you the cliff notes because it's a little bit of a drawn out story, but there were rumors that things were flying off the counter and lights not working. So there were all these stories I heard previously, and then one night I was cleaning the air ducts after hours, and basically what happened is I threw like a tarp over this rolling speed rack. I don't know, people in hospitality know what that is. It's like a storage container on wheels. And I turned around and I got my step stool and I went up the steps, and right on top of the tarp was like this squeeze bottle, which was only in the containers that were in the speed rack. So it was odd. That's not the last thing that happened, but it was the first thing that made me go, "What?" Like there was nothing above it. It was as if something in something just randomly moved on top. It was bizarre. And then the very next night, we were telling ghost stories for hours, me and this other closer. There was no one in the space. And then after about 5 hours of telling stories, I got just washed with fear out of nowhere. And we've been telling scary stories all night. It was immediate. And looking back, I think that probably was the presence making itself known. And right after that, I was like, "Hey, let's stop telling these stories. I'm getting really freaked out." And yeah, I was grabbing something from underneath this cabinet, and I heard this noise behind me, and I can't replicate it, but the way I've been telling it for, over 10 years now is that it sounded like a mix between a woman's voice and like a growl, and it was very textural. It sounded like it was coming through a radio station, like it was staticky. Craziest thing I've ever heard. Stopped for a second. I was like, "Oh, it's a song on the radio," except it wasn't because I knew that song, and the speaker was in front of me. Then I thought it was my friend behind me, who's a woman. And then I basically turned around to look at her and I asked her if that was her. She said she thought it was me. And then right between us was the coffee bar, like the espresso machine. And on top of the espresso machine, there were all these porcelain cups stacked for service. And that's about where I heard the noise. And we saw one of the cups float up in the air a couple inches, do a little jig side to side, and then come down and slide off the side. And we just started laughing hysterically, ran to the bathroom, just flooded with adrenaline. I remember being like, "Got it. Totally believe you. I'm good. I don't need to see anything else." Um, and yeah, ever since that point, I always tell people like, of course I'm still skeptical. Of course I don't believe 100% of everything that I hear from people, but I am much, much, much more open. And once you experience something that really is beyond your physical understanding of how reality works, it changes you and you never forget that. And I can't say that I've ever experienced anything of that caliber since then, but it changed me forever, for sure.
I think you were definitely made for the paranormal investigative world if something like that made you giggle.
It was just, what do you do? I mean, I wasn't afraid. It was just like, it's like seeing a magic trick for the first time. You're like, what? Like, this is, what is going on? It's insane. Um, and I was scared, and it was something I wanted to. So I think there was a little bit of that giddy, like, oh my God, like this is just wild. But yeah, so I've always wanted to join a team. I was very transient through most of my 20s. I'm in my mid 30s now. And yeah, I don't know. I think when I moved to Denver, I just was like, there's got to be people doing this here. Obviously, Colorado has so much history with these old mining towns and old architecture everywhere. And yeah, I just was like, I found these ladies and I was like, this is so cool. You know, there's all women doing this. That makes me feel so safe and like grounded. No offense to the men here at all. It's just a sister thing, you know, it's like we're women, we get each other. And um there's something very intuitive around working with all women. There's something really special and I think sacred that happens when women gather and tap into those intuitive abilities. And I'm sure everyone else here can and should share more about that because that's really what created this. But just sent them a DM and was like, hey, interested in doing this, you know, I don't know if you're looking for anyone to join. And it was a little bit of right place, right time, but I met Mackenzie and it was just like the rest is history. So very, very grateful and honored that I get to do this work and have fun with these ladies.
I think there is something to be said about like that sacredness of sisterhood and sorry, John and BJ earmuffs. No. But there is, you depending what you believe in, like in the metaphysical world, the idea of the sacred feminine energy being that strong. I mean, there's a reason that the stereotype of the coven is the way it is. Not to say anyone here is witches, but you know what I mean. It just there is something about that when you bring a lot of very powerful women together.
So I've got to share really quick on that topic. I think something really powerful happened pretty recently. We went to Cripple Creek last year and stayed at the St. Nicholas Hotel, and it was Christine and Ayana and I, and we did tarot card pulls at the beginning of the night, and we had flashlights set up and equipment set up, and it truly felt like we were actually interacting with spirit guides rather than like actual spirits in the hotel. We were kind of giving each other these tarot readings and saying kind of like what we were thinking. And then it's like, boom, the flashlight would turn on as we would say something during the tarot reading. And it felt like we got confirmation that that's what like spirit wanted us to know. So I thought that was a really unique experience, and I've never really thought about, kind of our spirit guides interacting with us during investigations, but like they're there too, which is kind of neat.
Have you guys been there before? Was this the first time that you were there?
We had been there before. Yeah, Christine, I'll let you tell about it.
I mean, we had been there, Mackenzie and I had been there before with the prior team that we were on together. And we had a crazy night and super active. Like we're not big orb people, not going to get off on that topic, but um, there were literal light orbs flying around the room, like from one room into the door, flashlight would go on, orb would come back out and hit the other flashlight. Like we were seeing all of this and it was crazy. I had all this energy in the back hallway when you go back, like down where the pool room is. And it was so different this last time we were there. It felt like a very big shift in the energy, not in a bad way in any way, much more calm, much more settled. But at one point during the night, I don't know who asked if it was Ayana or Mackenzie, and we said, "Our spirit guides with us," and multiple lights went on. Like that was the response. And so having such a different interaction, because the prior interaction was very much medical staff and taking care of people, and she was a nurse and we were in the operating suite. Um, and so very different interaction from what we had had before, for sure.
Yeah, it felt very maternal. I felt like the sisters were like it felt like being in my grandma's house. That's what the energy felt like, just very like taken care of. I thought staying in the surgical suite, I'd feel maybe some residual trauma in the room, or just more tension in the air, but it was very relaxed. But Christine, you should tell them about the little boy spirit and then what happened as we were leaving the hotel. Do you remember that?
Oh, is it
Tell them
Timmy?
about what's in every room first,
So
too.
the newest owners, they really embrace it. They're wonderful. But there is a little boy spirit, and guests kept complaining that their keys would disappear. And so each room, now we didn't know this at the time, but each room on a windowsill or in front of the TV on a mantle, they have these little old fashioned, keys. And just thought it was a decoration, didn't think anything of it. Ayana and I were packing up the next morning. I had my car keys. You can see where this is going. I had my car keys in my bag, zipped, never took them out. They were in the same place. When I unpacked, didn't unpack that zipper. Get everything out. You do the same thing. You look in the hotel room, nothing on the bed, and all my stuff is gone. And I walk out, go to the car, and we chatted downstairs with Mackenzie and go to my car. And I'm like, I don't have my keys. And Ayana's like, oh, did you have them before? What's going on? And I was like, no, they've been in here the whole weekend. Like I drove you guys yesterday, all of this stuff. So I go back up to the room and just say, can I get that? Is the door open? And they're like, oh, we haven't been up there. I went back up to our room and my keys were laying in the middle of the bed. And I went downstairs and just smiled and said, so my keys were on the middle of the bed. And the owner just laughed. And I think, isn't it Timmy? I can't remember the name, but they have a name for him.
Something like that. I
Oh, he
forget his
got
name too.
you. And it was totally, he's like, yeah, that's why we put all the keys in the room. We hope that if we give him a key in each room, he won't take yours. But obviously we know it doesn't work now. And yeah, so I said, thank you. And
That reminds me of when we stayed in Cheyenne at the hotel there, and you couldn't get into your
That's
room.
another good story.
Yeah, so that's kind of a
Uh-huh.
similar story too.
So I'm late to arrive to the recent Cheyenne investigation. What was the name of that hotel again?
it's the Plains
It was the
Hotel.
planes, yeah.
The Plains Hotel. Right. And so I'm last to arrive. I call Christine. I'm like, I'm here. She's like, great. I'm gonna meet you down in the lobby. And so I meet her in the lobby, and she's like, first of all, we're at like top floor, very end of the hallway, in a room that has some paranormal lore, that maybe one of y'all can get into because I forgot the exact history. But there's a woman, well, Rosie was her name, Rosie?
Rosie.
Okay, Rosie. So Christine's like, I got our keys, let's go. Or our guy, I got our room key, let's go. And it's an actual, it's not an old key, it's a like a swipe card key, a modern key. And so we walk all the way up and we go all the way to the end of the hall, and she swipes it and it doesn't work. And she does it a few times, it doesn't work. And she had been in there, all of her luggage was already in there, she was waiting for us, and we just cannot get this key to work. And I'm like, well, did you leave it near your phone? Because sometimes that can deactivate it. And she's like, yeah, probably. You wait here. I'll go down. I'll get us another one. So she goes down. He completely resets, or did he give you a new key or reset the key?
He
He gave
reset
you a
the
new key,
with a big
or
smile
reset
on
at the
his
key.
face. Yeah.
Yeah, with a big smile on his face. And I'm waiting there, and she walks back up and is like, okay, I've held this here the whole time. It has not been near any electronics, so this should work. Does not work. We're trying it literally like 20 times. We cannot get this door open.
We're
Like,
like
what is
10
going
minutes
on?
in at this point.
Yeah, because we're so far up the hotel. So I'm like, okay, you've done enough walking. I'll take the next trip. So Christine stays there. I go downstairs. I walk up to the front desk and I'm like, hey, I know you don't know who I am. I'm staying in
Rosie's room.
or I didn't know her name was Rosie, by the way,
Yeah.
at this point. I was like, I'm staying in room XX. No pun intended. And we cannot get the key to work, and I know you just reset it, but it's not working. And the guy, he's like kind of laughing under his breath and smiling, and he's like, he's like, okay, let me get you a new key. So he's doing the new key, and he's like, listen, I'm gonna tell you something crazy, but just try it for me. I'm like, okay. And he's like, just knock gently and ask very politely if ask Rosie if you can go in. And I was like, I have chills just talking about it. I was like, that's not crazy. This is what we do. And also, thank you for the hot tip. Let's try it. So I get the key, and I'm just smiling because I'm like, this is gonna work. And Christine's like, okay. And I walk down the hallway, and I'm just grinning ear to ear. And I remember going, watch this. And I walk up to the door, and I knock very lightly, and I go, hey, Rosie, could we please come in? Ding, ding, green light, immediate open door.
And I used the same key that hadn't worked.
Yeah, it was incredible. And I remember we were like, this is going to be an issue at 2 a.m.
Well, yeah, and it was.
And it was an issue. She did not let us in for a
She didn't let us in
minute.
when we came back from the Knights of Pythias location, with Way Out West. I was just going to sit on the floor. I mean, it took us almost 20 minutes to get back in the room when we got back that night from investigating.
We lost our patience too. I remember we were like, we were knocking, being like, Rosie,
come on, Rosie, please, this is not Rosie, funny. We're girls. We're not going to fuck you. We need to sleep.
Like we were.
Rosie's like, classy ladies don't come back at 2 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, this is going to be a problem, and it was. But that was just a fantastic cherry on top of the knife for sure.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I wonder why that guy didn't tell you, like, he didn't save you a trip. He made you go back and forth a couple times. It's like, oh yeah, by the way.
Maybe he was hoping he didn't have to say that, because maybe a lot of people don't believe in that, and they're going to be like, you're nuts.
Well, and when I had checked in, I said, we're with a team, and he told me the whole history of the room and what it was, and pretty traumatic. And then, and I had gotten in just fine. And Ayana and I were joking that it was when she got there. Like when I had first gotten in, everything was cool. She was letting me in. I was talking to her. It was going to be all good. I promised her we wouldn't bother her. And then I think when Ayana got there, she thought, you lied. And then after we got home late, whether it was the energy, because that was a crazy, crazy night of investigating, who knows? I think maybe we brought some people back with that we didn't even know, and she was none too pleased with us.
That's a good point, too. You guys could have had someone with you that came back from Knights of Pythias. So,
Lana, you mentioned that you had paranormal experiences as a kid. What kind of experiences did you experience?
I had many things happen to me. I think the first thing that my mom told me about when I was a kid is we went back to Atlanta for my grandfather's funeral. And my great aunt Jane, I don't even think she was my aunt, but she had a really old house out in the middle of the woods. And I remember being really young and sleeping in like an old back bedroom. And my mom, I remember she told me she woke me up in the middle of the night because she heard me talking to somebody, like sitting up in the corner and talking to someone. And when she asked me who it was, I was like, oh, I'm talking to Boots. And she was like, wait a minute, what did you just say? And I was like, I've been talking to Boots. And she was like, hold up. And I guess I didn't know it at the time, of course, because I was like 6 years old, but it was my cousin Boots's room. That wasn't her name, it was her nickname, but nobody really called her that. It was just like her closest cousins called her Boots. And my mom was like, oh, wait, there's something definitely wrong with this kid. And I remember she was very freaked out by that. But there were other times too that she told me that I like saw something or like had a feeling about a certain place or a person. Another example was, and my dad even brought it up to me a couple weeks ago, but we used to go camping a lot. And there was one place, I forgot if it was Lake Glendo or if it was McConaughey or if it was somebody somewhere here in Colorado, but there had been like a situation where someone had kidnapped like a little girl and had thrown her in one of those like outhouses that are just the hole. And so they had kidnapped her, put her in a bag, and thrown her down there while she was still alive. And thank God they found her and rescued her. But my family showed up to camp there like maybe a month after the fact. And my parents were just like, you refuse to go into that porta potty saying that there was like a little girl in there that you refused to go in there. And then they went into a store and found like it in the headlines that like a month earlier someone had thrown a little girl down there and she had had this traumatic experience. So my mom always told me about stuff like that. I remember I've had a lot of experience with death. A lot of close people pass away, especially when I was young and all throughout my life. So I think I've just had a different relationship with death than a lot of other people have had. So that's what I mean by my mom kind of nurturing that aspect of like my intuition and like my trust in myself is just kind of telling me these stories and then just kind of reaffirming that trust in my own intuition in myself, even when I was doubting it. And I mean, stuff has happened to me throughout my entire life, not just when I was a child, but even recently with the recent passing of my mom. So I think that, yeah, it's just part of my life. And I think sometimes it truly does scare me. I'm not as brave as Ayana to laugh, but definitely some of it truly scares me, especially now that I'm older and I can't like just kind of chop it up as imagination. I think, yeah, so
But I think in that sisterhood, um, if I might comment on that, I think in this strong sisterhood that you are all creating, that balance is going to come in really handy. Ayana's ability to laugh, your ability to tap into something a little bit more on a, I don't want to say a serious level, but just like a different level that that's going to really complete out how you experience these paranormal encounters.
yeah, definitely.
I think that's a really good point. We investigate very similar, but we all bring something so very different. Mackenzie is so intuitive, and Ayana is just this light, welcoming energy, and Lana too, this curiosity and kind of childlike, I want to see this. And it really does balance out. And I think the biggest thing for me is what's missing is a power struggle, because that just doesn't happen.
No, that's really nice. And then we also invited Callie to come on our investigations this year to help out as well, because Ayana is preparing for a wedding, so she's going to be busy with some things. So really excited to have Callie's experience too. I mean, she has so many stories and so many investigations that she's done, and so I'm excited to see her areas of expertise come through and her unique investigating style to come through too. And she's very sensitive. We had her come for our Halloween investigation this past year at 4 Mile Historic Park, and she got had to leave early because she was not feeling well, and I think she just kind of got a little overloaded. So
She's such a calming energy too.
yes.
She's incredible to be around for sure. It was like I felt like I had bought a ticket to watch someone do it, you know? You can just feel how storied her life is and how long she's been doing this. She just brings like a real maternal, wise, grounded energy. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's something just so knowing in how she asks her questions. We were doing, an Estes session, and I had an SLS going, and I'm telling her that I'm seeing something crawl up the wall and, onto the ceiling. And she just stayed so focused, and, gosh, the people at that event, they got their money's worth. That one it was intense at the very end, just not to veer off, but Mackenzie was actually helping other people who it was just a little too much. And walking them back. Ayana, we were doing a double Estes session, and I felt and we laughed afterwards because Ayana, did we get it on video? And I was like, dude, okay. It felt like there were ping pong balls bouncing around that room. Like it was so out of control. I don't know if we brought that much in or if it was participants or both. But if you've ever walked like late night into a club and it is just thumping, and you kind of can't get your bearings. That's what the last hour of this investigation was. It was just over the top, like energy. I've never actually had anything like that.
Yeah, I was in it. I was like, I'll do Estes for 5, 10 minutes. And then they tapped me and they were like, you've been under for 45 minutes. I literally thought it had been maybe 10, 15 minutes max. Exhausted. I was exhausted.
So Ayana and one of the people who participants who came, they were talking to each other amongst all of the other stuff that was going on. It was crazy.
John and I are no stranger to ghost parties.
No, not at all. Can I just mention something? Lana, you brought up the little girl that got kidnapped up in the mountains. I'm friends with that family. That
No
happened when we
way.
were growing. I'm not even kidding. When you were mentioning that, I'm getting goosebumps now. Like,
I
yeah,
just
she
got
wrote a
chills.
book about it and everything. It's so freaking crazy. It's such a small world. But yeah,
Oh my
we
gosh,
lived
that's crazy.
we lived a house away from them, and we
Where
actually
was
ended up
that?
down in Sheridan. It was here in Colorado.
Oh,
It happened in Colorado. Yeah, but yeah, friends with
crazy.
that family. My dad worked with the father, and I was friends with her and her brother, and we all grew up one house away. It was so crazy. Yeah,
That's crazy because, like, that's not really a known story, especially because she survived. Like, yeah,
exactly.
that's insane. That's the coincidence is so insane. And I was
Hmm.
going to say that earlier too about the timing that I found XX. Like, it was just such, I think, such a coincidental thing for me. And I feel like it's been such a healing journey, even though I haven't really experienced much yet. But just knowing of everything that's coming up, it's just given me like a way to heal and like grieve the loss of my mother in like such a productive way and just feel so supported by these wonderful women and like learn from them. That's the thing that I'm most excited about. And like Christine said, I'm like a little kid with it. They're like, we have this tool and this tool. And I'm like, I can't wait. So thank you for mentioning that. I'm so glad because it's just another piece of validation that there is something else to this. And although I don't know what it is, I'm always going to be curious about why and why me and why I'm connected to these other very spiritual, very intuitive people. So thank you. That's great.
Yeah, no, you're welcome.
But you know what? Can I give just a little like shift in like a different perspective? Because I know you said, although you haven't experienced much, however, I feel like there are so many people in the paranormal investigative world that are actively searching to experience the spiritual world in a way that you grew up with. You attach to energies and trauma of people that are still alive. Like you were able to connect to energy in such a way that you don't necessarily even need the tools. Are the tools fun? Sure. Are they a different way to experience, the spiritual realm? Absolutely. But you're able to connect in a way that a lot of people don't know how to, and you do it intuitively. So give yourself that credit.
Thank you. And that's such a great way of looking at it. And I think that's, what I'm really learning from Christine, Ayana, and Mackenzie is that, at first I was really hesitant, especially after losing someone you're really close with. It's almost terrifying to get that confirmation. But I think like through this process, I can start to understand that like everything does kind of happen for a reason, and the people that come into your life come to you for a reason, and that it's just it's so validating to not be afraid of it, and it kind of like makes me stronger and grow deeper in my curiosity to have a reaffirming positive energy with it instead of always being afraid or tied to the trauma of it.
Ashley, I think that's a great point too. That I think for all of us, kind of those first experiences, what we consider our most significant experiences, really, it's not with the equipment. It's, we've all had something, and I've had a couple, that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't investigating. It was just, it happened. And for me, the only apparition I've ever seen was with my son. And that apparition has come back. It came back this summer. Um, And, it's crazy to have my son texting me. First of all, to have a 20-year-old kid texting you, that's awesome. But when the text is, "Hey mom, remember that shadow figure that we saw and it was that guy with the hat and the jacket and he knocked on your car when we were driving and then disappeared? Yeah, he's back and he came and saw me in my parking lot when I was on my break." I mean, and we didn't seek it out. So being able to experience these things and have these real life experiences, working with my son, Lana, the way your parents walked you through those things, it's crazy to be on the other side of that. But I think it goes to that we're open to it and we want to communicate and see what's out there. And you don't need the equipment.
Yeah, the equipment's fun.
It's really
I mean, it's fun when you have a little cat ball and it's suddenly lighting up and you're like, ooh, lights. It's something's touching it. I mean, John has seen me hop all around a cat ball just to see how close you have to be to set it off. And he's like, what are you doing? And it's just like, you have to test it. It didn't set off. So then when it does go off, you're like, oh, so it's exciting. And I think for some of us who maybe weren't nurtured in that way, right? Like we had to keep that hidden. We had to keep it quiet. And now it's a little bit more mainstream. And so the tools are a little bit easier to get a hold of. Those tools kind of help us validate ourselves. At least for me, it helps me because I'm like, oh, maybe I wasn't crazy all this time. Maybe it wasn't all in my head. But ultimately, I think one of the most beautiful things, in my opinion, that we all have, every single person, which I think is lovely in this recording, we each have gifts that we are in tune with. Maybe are we trying to work in different ways to enhance or learn it more or learn something new? Possibly. We're all on our journeys, but we all have something we're connected to. And that's not nothing because I watch the shows, I hear what people talk about, and they're like, man, it's so cool when people can get in touch with that stuff. So I would say, if I can recommend, I'm definitely not part of the team, and I definitely don't go on many investigations because I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. But with that said, stuff pops off around me. And I know a lot of people that's exciting for me, I'm that scary end of the spectrum. So, except the cat balls, that's fun. But for you, Lana, because you haven't gone on an investigation yet, I would say, if I may, when you go to that investigation, really let your intuition guide you that first, like sit with the space before you touch any tool and see what speaks to you, because the fact that you're able to connect with energies that are not like previously deceased spirits, I think I don't think I've met someone who can just connect to like trauma, like energetic trauma in spaces. So I think it'd be really interesting to see what you're able to connect to in places that have a history of that kind of trauma, whether people died there or not, to see maybe what you're able to start picking up, what might have happened there.
That's really great advice, and I'm going to take it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think that's our whole, methodology as a team is to try and trust that intuition first and then use the equipment to validate. So we usually do like to do a walkthrough without equipment, see what we're feeling in each room, and then use the equipment to try and connect. And then we tell everyone when we do public investigations as well, hey, if you're getting a name, if you're getting some sort of message that is coming to you, you don't know where it's coming from, but you just keep getting this word or something, say it out loud and let us know. And then we start asking questions around that, because usually if you're getting that, there's some sort of reason for it. So that's such a fun way to get validation that you're not crazy, that those words or those images or those names that you're getting, that they're actually something.
Mackenzie, Christine mentioned you're like a really strong intuitive within the group. Where exactly does the intuition hit you? Like, is it like empathy, or is it more of like an intuitive knowing? Which aspect does that kind of reside in you?
I would say more of the claircognizance or the clear knowing, like I and then I do have some mediumship abilities, but I have to practice them to actually get them to be stronger. But there was a while where like I was in a Facebook group and it was okay, I'm going to post it. People would post photos of their deceased loved ones and they would say, can you anyone connect and see if they have any messages? And my favorite story to tell is that a lady posted a photo of her mom and she said, "Is my mom proud of me?" And I commented and said, I do think your mom is proud of you, but this is really weird, but for some reason I'm seeing the image of a child taking their first steps. Does that mean anything to you? And she responded and she said, I've never believed in this, but my daughter took her first steps yesterday. And I said, well, your mom saw that. So I think like that gave me validation that like I wasn't just making something up. Or like I had another one where a lady posted a photo of her fiance that had passed. And she said, can anyone get any messages? And I said, I don't know why, but I'm seeing two really big dogs. Like, does that mean anything to you? And she's like, he loved those dogs. Like, they're still around. And I'm like, well, he spends time with them or whatever. But when you ask those questions and you get that validation, it's so powerful. And so I try and practice that on the investigations. Sometimes I get names and, I don't get validation. But when I do, or when I get those images or those words, like I kind of like, it almost feels like a repetition and then I will ask about it. And so I think that's kind of how you tune in your intuition is you start asking those questions and see if you can get some sort of validation.
Yeah, this was coming up for me listening to you talk, Mackenzie, is just like, I think one of my favorite parts of investigating with these ladies and also just in general is that it's become like a spiritual practice in a big way. There's so much detachment that you have to be willing to practice if you want to do this work in integrity, I think. And that's why every time we start a public investigation, one of us will always say, listen, we can't guarantee anything's going to happen tonight at all. We're not here to use smoke and mirrors. We're not here to, do the ghost adventures thing. Like, we're just here and we're curious and we're going to do our best to all collectively, vulnerably share and ask questions and follow our intuition and our energy. And when something does happen, it like you were saying, it just makes it that much more special. But ultimately, it's almost like Buddhist in a way of just like being open and practicing such detachment to being like nothing might happen and really getting out of your own way of wanting something to happen. I feel like when you're just completely open and receptive, that's like not always, but sometimes when the coolest things can. Like Christine was saying, like we've all had experiences where we weren't playing with tools, we weren't on an investigation together. And I really do think that is a big part of the energetic work of all of this is kind of mentally, spiritually, emotionally allowing yourself to be a vessel and getting your own desires for things to happen out of the way so that other things can come through you. And then being able to trust your intuition enough to say, I'm going to say that out loud. That feels weird, and maybe it's just my mind, but also I'm just going to say it out loud. And I think that is like the magic, because beyond experiencing something paranormal, we ultimately get to experience this like deep connective force between all of us that we've been so socialized out of recognizing and talking about, especially as women, and especially as men as well. Men have these gifts. Non-binary folks have these gifts. It doesn't matter what your gender is, what your presentation is, whatever. We all have that. And in this day and age, I just feel like it's so rare to find spaces where we get to practice that deeper voice or that, seeing with our third eye, whatever you want to call it. And it's cool. It's cool to do it together. And it's nice that it's not like, we're not calling it like, come to this like new age circle. It's like, no, we're ghost investigating, It's just been a cool, like, arrival on my journey with all of this to really, like, recognize that in a deeper way, and it's just cultivated, yeah, such a deep appreciation for the way that these women have set up the spaces that they curate and that I get to walk into and experience. It's, yeah, it's such a gift beyond just paranormal.
Yeah, you mentioned not being focused on like expectations, right? And this idea of detachment. And I'm a big, firm believer on energy and like the energetic principles. And it really is this idea of energy goes where energy flows. So when we are hyper focused on an expectation, we have turned off every receiver to anything else because we're only focused on that one thing. So by fully, like you said, fully just being open to whatever, all the receivers are open. And so your channels are going to be tuning in like those spirit boxes, right? It's going to pick up somewhere. And so I really love how you all are approaching investigations.
And I would add, I think one of the coolest things that I've noticed is even after doing this for a decade, new experiences. That's been a big thing for me. And there's, I mean, Ayana Mackenzie, you know, my friend who found me at 4 Mile. And I'm still kind of trying to figure out what happened. Long story short, I kind of called a spirit to me. And through some other people helping me, it's quite possible that he was involved in a past life. And because of the location we were at, fit the time, it gets into the whole matrix, other dimensions kind of stuff. But it was a crazy experience. Ayana, we all had it. I mean, I walked into a room and he followed me and called me a name.
Called you the B word.
Called me the B
Multiple
word.
times.
Multiple times, like
Sure.
20
He called
times.
you a baddie?
Yes.
He called you a bad bee.
Well, and it's really funny because my husband's nickname, he calls me B. And so we joke that, you know, depending on B's mood, you know, it can go for different definitions. But it was this really crazy thing of, I always give the analogy of not, maybe some of the places we go aren't haunted, but that when we show up, we kind of, it's like a lighthouse, and all of a sudden that light is on and they know that we're there. So we do bring in energy, spirits, maybe not tied to the location that we're, quote, investigating, but anything that might just be out there in the ether that senses us and is like, oh, hey, cool, there's a ghost party going on, let's go. And so that's kind of always been my view. And the way that got turned on its head was that a spirit showed up that was directly tied to a past life, to me very personally. And so these new experiences, the fact that I can go to the same place that we've been investigating now for 4 or 5 years at 4 Mile, we love it there, and still have a different experience each time is, I think, just invaluable. Like, I never get sick of going to even the same places, because it is never the same experience.
Is that where you're going next? Is that where Lana's getting her first experience?
So we actually have a location this weekend, top secret. We're going to, it's a new place that we haven't been before, so we're going to investigate it and see how it goes. If we get activity, then we are hoping to partner with that location to offer like a ghost history tour / paranormal investigation, like a public one. So crossing our fingers we get activity then.
Do you guys, because I missed the Halloween one because it sold out. I was like, oh no. But how many people are usually at these events at the 4 Mile?
We keep them small. I think our biggest event we've had 20 people.
Yeah, 20 is what I was going to say.
Yeah, and then what we do from there is we split into 2 to 3 groups and investigate different areas of the park. Christine and I can definitely vouch that we've been on prior teams or done prior investigations with other groups where there's just so many people, it's not a good positive experience. So we definitely want people to have the value of being able to, be in a smaller group, be able to hear the equipment if we're using equipment, be able to hopefully experience things, and also to have a good experience for the spirits who may be there, because I do think there's something to having too large of a group, I think is overwhelming for what may be in the space. So we try and keep our groups small.
That makes a lot of sense to split them up, and especially if it's a bigger place that grounds, right? You can walk around, go to different places. Because yeah, that's the thing that's kind of hard, especially if you've gone to places where there's a lot of people. That it's. I mean, the Nights at the Pythias was maybe an exception because there was a lot of there's I don't know what was there 5 or 6
Yeah,
groups of paranormal
it was a huge
investigators,
location.
and that's part of it. It was a huge location, and we all had different experiences, and we'd write them on the board and everything. So that was fun. I had a really good time there. But you're right. Like anything more than if it's a small location, like any more than 10 is definitely too many, right?
So at the end of the night, we always end together. And on Halloween, it was the only time that I thought we have too many in here. And I don't think that it was the people. There were so many spirits in addition to 18 or 20 people. And it just felt like, I know I keep saying it, but it was crazy in there. I felt like I was standing room only. Like we were sardines.
It was wild.
And we tell people to pay attention to that too. We're like, hey, do you feel the energy right now? And then we later, if it gets dead, so to speak, where it's quiet and nothing's happening, we're like, do you feel how the room feels empty right now? So I love trying to point that out to people. The differences in energy when you walk into a room, or you walk into a room and it's heavy or light. I love giving the analogy of if you've ever looked for an apartment or a house and you walk in and there's certain ones that you've gone in that you're just like, oh no, not this place. And it's not necessarily the look of the place, but it's the feel of the place. I've gone in some basements and some houses before where I'm like, ooh, shit went down in here. I do not want to live here. No, thank you. So I feel like you can definitely feel that energy in a space if you're paying attention to it.
We were house hunting, oh gosh, years and years and years ago. And when I first met my husband, he was not a believer. And now, we're decades in, so he fully believes. You can't be around this little ghost magnet and not eventually believe. But we were ghost hunting or I'm sorry, not ghost hunting, house hunting. And what podcast are we on? And the night before, I had this dream about this house. And I don't know why, but in the dream, I had walked to the side of the house, opened the gate, saw this path, then went back to the front, walked through the house, and there was all sorts of dark occult stuff throughout the house. And the energy just felt really bad. And I don't mean dark occult as in shades of gray. It was disturbing. And the dream ended up being pretty intense. And so the next day when we went house hunting, my thought is I had this dream because I'm scared of house hunting, maybe, I don't know. But we were probably 3 or 4 houses in, and we pulled up to the house. We walked to the front of this house, and I stop and I'm like, oh no. And he's just like, what's wrong? And I'm like, we don't want this house. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I've been to this house. What do you mean? He's like, what do you mean you've been to this house? I'm like, I dreamt about this house last night. And he's like, yeah, I'm like, there was something wrong with this house. He's like, babe, it's fine. Let's just take a look. I'm like, no, I have to know. And so I went to the side of the house where the gate would be in my dream. And I'm like, if I'm right, there is a path that looks like this on the side of the house. And he's just like, okay. So he goes to open the gate, but it's locked. And he's pretty tall. So I'm just like, just look over the gate. So he hoists up, looks over, and he's like, we probably don't want this house. So We still went inside, and because the realtor showed up and was like, let's take a look around. I already am walking through this house like I know it. I go to the bedroom, and then you're not really supposed to look in things, but I'm like, I just have to know. So like there was this armoire like in my dream. I open it and there's all this stuff they had shoved in of like paraphernalia of different occult things, and I was like,
Nah.
close the doors. Yep,
Nah.
close the doors. And my husband's like, not our house. Let's go. Only time I've ever fully had some kind of like dreamt about it and then it manifested like that. But I'm
That's
like,
wild.
thank you, dream. Don't want this house.
That's wild. Good looking out, whoever took you there. You know
Whoever
what I'm
sent me
saying?
that. Yeah, I know. But yeah, I think that was one of the first times that he actually started to truly believe that maybe there is more to what we're capable of than meets the eye. Because he used to be very, I call it 3D. He used to be very in the 3D world. And, like I said, over 20 years later, he's just like, I believe you.
We've had those similar kind of conversations. My husband's the same way. And over the years, he's like, I don't want to admit this, but when you look at physics, there is actually some theoretical stuff out there that would say that there are other dimensions, and here's the science, and oh my God, I think I'm agreeing with you. So,
When I
yeah.
first met my husband, he didn't believe in it, and I actually, because I am afraid of that world, or I used to be a lot more afraid of that aspect because I grew up with it, but because it wasn't embraced by family, I was scared of it. So when I met him, I actually liked how much he didn't believe because I feel like it kind of buffered me from a lot of it. But the more he has switched to a believer, the more that activity pops off around all of us to the point where he's like, what have you done to me? And it's like, welcome to the dark side, baby.
My favorite question is, how did you know that?
I also have a skeptical husband. When we were out in Salem, we had to go to Proctor's Ledge, and I dragged him with me. And one of my favorite pieces of equipment for people to use is dowsing rods. And I love that because you can feel the energy, and it is a direct way for you to know, like, if you're moving it, if you're not moving it. And it's just one of those things, like, you can't really, think that it's something else because you're the one that's holding them. And so I had my husband holding the dowsing rods, and I was asking questions. And then inevitably, the dowsing rods started moving. And he's just like, I'm not moving them. I'm not moving them. And I was like, I know. So that's my favorite thing for skeptics to use. And we've done that so many times. Anytime we have a skeptic, I'm like, hey, why don't you try these out? And
Ira, could you hold these for a moment?
And I was also going to ask, have you heard the theory about intuition being, so an idea that time isn't linear, basically that the future has kind of already happened, and your intuition is basically a message from yourself coming back to you?
No, but I like that.
I like it too. I think I think time is very interesting. Like, I've always had a hard time, like, understanding time. And I really don't think it's linear. I think, especially, I have a 14-month-old, and I feel like time has changed so much having a child. But I feel like there's things that I'm grieving that haven't even happened yet. And I feel like, I just really don't think time is linear. So I think that is interesting how that might play a role into, the spiritual realm. And anytime I feel like we ask questions of, like, do you know what year it is? Or do you know what month it is? Or what the holiday is? I feel like we usually don't get answers. And I feel like they don't know.
Do we have time for one more quick story?
Oh, we have plenty of time. However, much
Okay.
time you have.
I've been feeling this story wanted to be told, but I'm like, only if it like makes sense and I feel like it wants to be told.
Tell
Um,
it.
so this is it. It piggybacks off the time not being linear thing, and then also like my dad not ever believing in any of this stuff until this happened. So this is a story of how my grandmother passed away. I think I've told this story to the gals. Yeah,
Oh,
this is a
yes.
really
Yes, I
good
remember
one.
this one.
Yeah. So my grandmother Joan and her husband Otto met in the UK during World War II. So my grandfather, this is my dad's parents, by the way. They met at a dance. So he was a vet, or he was a veteran, and he would, they would put on these dances for soldiers back then to like boost morale. And she was just this young English girl at a dance, and he walked up and asked her to dance, and they fell in love. And the rest was history. He was an active duty soldier for a couple of years after that, and then they, fell in love. And so he actually died several years before she did. She lived to be 95 or 96. She actually passed away maybe 4 or 5 years ago now. And my parents had been staying in Louisiana because she was there, and um, had gotten back from travels. And like the week that they got back, they received the news that she had developed a really large tumor in her jaw. And I don't know all the details, but I know that they sat her down with nurses and had a long conversation. And she made it very clear that she was not interested in receiving treatment for it. She was ready to go, horrible way, but she just was like, it's not worth it. So it got pretty large. And then when she was nearing end of life, I got the call from my parents that were like, hey, Nana's gonna pass soon. You probably need to get on a flight and come say her goodbyes. So we flew back to Shreveport, Louisiana, where I'm from. And I remember when we got there, she was actually in our home. She was actually in the room that I grew up in on a cot. And we had in-home hospice nurses. And my mom had actually been training to be a death doula. So my uncle is actually the Louisiana like coroner or Shreveport coroner. We have all these interesting connections to death. But yeah, she was in-home hospice. My mom had set up this altar at her feet, full of like photos of her and family and her and Otto and candles and whatnot. So anyway, yeah, the day that me and my sister arrived, we saw one of the hospice nurses leaving the home, and she was like, she's gonna pass tonight. So make sure you get in there, say what you need to say. I did go in there. She had like a softball on her face. It was awful. But she did grab my hand, which felt really good, and, told her I loved her, yada, yada, yada. We had her on a baby monitor so we could hear maybe when she would stop breathing. Anyway, I digress. So she's still breathing. We're all exhausted. We go to sleep. We wake up, still breathing. The hospice nurses come in and they're like, we have no idea how she made it through the night. So we don't know what's going on, but she's definitely going to go tonight. So if there's anything else you need to say. This went on for 3 straight days of the nurses coming in and being like, what? It was 3 or 4 days of just them being like, we do not know what's going on. We're so sorry. Like, we never seen anything like this. She had the like rattle and everything, like very, very close. So on the third or fourth night, I'm up in my parents' room with my mom trying to get some sleep, and my dad comes in at around 12:05, 12:10, something like that, and is like, she's gone. And we're like, oh my gosh, processing. And we're like, what happened? And he's like, the craziest thing happened. And he said, I went in there and I was just talking to her, and I was just saying, Mom, it's okay to go. It's okay. And he said, Otto's waiting for you, and he told her something really sweet. He goes, Otto's walking across the floor and he's asking you to dance. And he said that she, like, right after, like, took this big inhale and took her final breath. And that right after she took her last breath, a candle in front of a photo of her and Otto went out, like at the altar, like right afterward, it gets better. So that's beautiful, right? And then that morning, we're sitting around the breakfast table and we realize it had been 10 years to the day that my grandpa had died when she passed. She passed just after midnight on the exact day that he passed 10 years ago. So for me, that story has always just been the most incredible example of the mystery that is beyond this veil. And I truly believe there is something, some sort of portal forged through like love and death that connects souls. It's just, I get chills every time I tell that story. It's just really profound. But it gives me a lot of peace and has given me a lot of peace since that's happened. And when I think about death and loss, I just always remember like there's so much we don't understand about, birth and death and what's next. So yeah, just wanted to share that.
That was a really beautiful story. I appreciate you sharing that.
Of course.
When it comes to time, I am a firm believer that, and I love what you added, Mackenzie, because I feel like it's just an added little piece of the puzzle that's just like constantly coming together in my head. But I have this feeling, and I've told the guys this, I think I even said it to Kelly at some point, that when I have this feeling that when we experience deja vu, that's actually our intuition telling us that we're exactly where we're supposed to be. And so paired with what you were saying, Mackenzie, that, our intuition is us telling us something, our future self telling us something we need to know in the present, it's like maybe that just all weaves together. And, oh, I love it. And I'm trying not to cry. Ayana. With that said, do any of you have any other stories that you feel compelled to share or any messages?
I'll just say, Ayana, your story does remind me of when my dad passed, and not going to go into any of the details, but after the fact, the night that he had passed, he came to me in a dream and showed me what happens. And it started in this very sterile feeling room, and there was no words, but I knew I needed to find him water. And when I found him water, he just drank water and drank water and drank water. And I said, you're here, what do you need? What do you need from me? And he said, Christine, I don't need anything. And then he just smiled and he said, and I'm not here. And I literally blinked and he was gone. And for the next few weeks, he was always in my dreams, and it confused the hell out of me, because in my dream, I knew he had passed, and he would just sit and smile at me. And that's when it flipped. And he said, but Christine, I'm always here. And I feel like when I got that message, that's when he stopped coming to me. And he knew I had done this. He lived down in Texas and would ask like, oh, this is happening in my house. Do you think it's haunted? What could we do? And we joked, and I said, well, someday you'll have to show me that it's real. You'll have to prove to me. And I feel like he did that in his way, and it's been, well, it's 5 years now. And, yeah, I feel like he showed me. And I think it's capable for all of us. It's just whether we're paying attention. It's that idea of when you buy a certain car. When I bought my truck, all of a sudden I was seeing the same trucks all over the road. When you open yourself up and you really truly start to see things, you'll see it everywhere. And so again, Ayana talking about that mindfulness, that being in that space with no expectation. I never expected my father to come to me and give me the messages that he did. But I'm so grateful that even though I didn't even know or desire or want it, I was open to it. And that's when the magic happens, I think.
Sometimes I think when we lose people that we love so fiercely, we grieve, but sometimes I wonder when we grieve so hard, it's holding on to them so that they can't move on. We lost a very important person in our family, my uncle, and they were, my mom had an especially hard time letting him go. Obviously, that's her brother she practically raised. But the family was having, it was almost like this. You could feel everyone collectively just pulling him because he was so important in the family and the loss was a shock. And I hadn't been allowing myself to grieve, I don't think. And because I happened to be very early stages pregnant at the time. So I was a little worried about if I grieve too hard, am I going to cause issues, right? So I wasn't really allowing myself to breathe. But I remember like a month or two after he had passed, it was actually probably quite a few months after, I had a dream where I was lost in this house. And it was interesting because it was in between floors. So it wasn't like the main floor, the second floor, it was like in between. But there was, I don't know if you've ever dreamt in black and white, but when I happened to stumble upon that floor, everything became black and white and it was just filled, like almost like a hoarding space with things and clutter and lost objects. And I'm like trying to find my way out and I'm like, oh gosh, I'm lost. And again, because it's kind of like an in-between floor, I'm a little claustrophobic even in my dreams. So I'm like, oh, panic, I got to get out. And then my uncle comes out of nowhere. And he's just like, hey, come with me. It's okay. And he led me through the space to this balcony. And we go onto this balcony towards this door. And on the other side of the door, I can see people in color, and they're laughing and it's light and it's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, thank you. Come on, let's go. And I'm trying to pull him with me. And he's pulling me back or at least, well, he's not pulling me back, but he's not coming. And I'm like, come on, we got to go. And he's like, I can't go in there with you. And I'm just like, what? And he's like, I can't go in there with you. You have to let go. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, you all have to let go. And like, I went to the other side of the door. But as soon as I went to the other side of the door, I woke up and I was sobbing. And for me, it was the first moment I had allowed myself to let go, but also grieve. But in that moment, it also kind of, I don't know if it was an intuitive thing or what, but in my heart, I knew I had to help my family let him go. And it's hard. It's hard to explain that to people because you've all been dealt like intense loss. How do you explain to people, hey, we might be holding them back from moving on? I don't know. I don't know. This got really sad.
Yeah. No, I think I was very reassured just by the very simple message of, I'm here, you know? And it's just been very reassuring to years later fully believe, yeah, he's still with me. It's all good.
And I tell people too, like, just know that your loved ones are around, that they hear you talking with them, and that you can ask them for signs that they're around. You can ask them to leave you feathers or pennies or something that was meaningful to them, like to show you butterflies. They do those things. They can do those things for you. So I definitely believe in that. And I do encourage a lot of friends. I've had a lot of friends that have had parents, especially, pass away within the last year. And I highly encourage them to talk with a medium, like a reputable medium that has good reviews. It was very helpful for me in my healing journey when my stepdad passed away. I had a medium that, pointed out some things or said some things that there's absolutely no way that she could have known. And it gave me so much peace hearing some of those messages. And I definitely encourage that as a part of therapy that I think a lot of people don't consider. To hear those messages. Sometimes, like, you kind of need to hear those messages from the other side, and you just want to have peace and know that they're okay. And I was able to get that, so I definitely encourage a lot of people to consider that in their healing journey.
Does anyone else have anything they want to share?
I just wanted to say real quick. I mean, I mentioned a little earlier that I lost my mom recently. It's almost been a year now. But it's crazy, Christine, because I had a similar dream about my mom. I've had a lot of dreams about her where I know that she's not really here and I'm trying to give her a bunch of water and she's just drinking the water and I know she's here but she's not fully herself. And I think so much of like my grieving process is really focused on like looking for those signs from her, and then I don't get them and I start freaking out. But I think like hearing Mackenzie and Christine and Ayana talk about it, it kind of seems like maybe that hyper focus on trying to get that validation that she's okay, I'm kind of tuning out the things that could potentially be showing me that she is. And I think like I'm about to call a medium right now, Mackenzie. So thanks for that too. But I did consider it for like around Halloween when I knew the veil would be the thinnest. I don't think I was ready then, but I think like that's really sound advice is to give somebody if they're truly looking for that peace that you can't necessarily find in dreams. At least I think that those things come to you when you're ready, and I want to be ready now, but I think that everything happens for a reason in its own due time. And so I think that that's very comforting advice. And I think like a lot of this is dealing with personal grief and like that search for just knowing that somebody you have loved and lost is okay on the other side. And through just like experiencing the unknown, it gives you that hope that there's something else. And so I was just so thankful that Christine, you shared your dreams because I feel like I'm in the same way. Just maybe not at the one where she's like, "Oh, I am here yet," but maybe I'll get there soon after a medium.
That's awesome.
Maybe you can also ask a different question. Like, could you and your mom know each other in a way that nobody else does? Like that connection, right? And so maybe just, hey, mom, I'd like to know that you're there, that you're okay. Maybe if you're able to, can you show me a clear sign that you know I will know is from you? And just once you've said it, let it be. What it is, like Ayana said, don't have the expectation.
Yeah, I'm working on that part definitely. But
Expectations are hard.
yeah, I think like yeah, when you're expecting something, you're definitely ruling out all possibilities. So I'm gonna keep my heart, my mind open.
My heart's rooting for you. I'm gonna send all the energy. You know, I've asked people that, and I know BJ and John, we've asked guests this, like, what is your why? Why do you investigate? Beyond the thrills and chills and everything, what's your why that keeps you going? And I think a lot of us at the heart of it is we have lost loved ones and we just want to know that there is something beyond, because then that means they're still beyond and they're okay. Which brings me to, what is your why?
I think mine has always just been trying to find answers, curiosity, trying to understand more of those mysteries of the unknown. Like there's just so much that we don't know, and I love just trying to piece it together and learn as much as I can, and find out, what else is out there, and who we're talking to, or when we're talking to. I just think there's so much we don't know. So I just think it's really fun and interesting and fulfilling. And to give them a voice too. I think it's really important to tell their story. And that's part of, our team name, is the communication piece. We want to relay their story too. So
I think my why has changed. I think I started with that curiosity. And I think for a long time I was afraid of death. And, when you're young, I didn't worry about it then, but man, I had kids, and the thought of dying terrified me. And I've evolved to this point where I think for me, the why, it just continually brings me peace of learning more and just always wondering what else is out there. And how can we communicate with it? Um, and it's kind of funny because it's evolved to the point where, yeah, my son is like, Mom, you are way too comfortable with death. And I'm like, that's sorry. But, we need to get there. It happens to all of us. None of us will be in this body in this form looking like this. If energy never dies, then what is it? Where does it go? And how can we really tune into that energy? Because I'm a firm believer that all of us are capable of doing this. I think a lot of people come to our events, and my why has evolved into, you are capable of this. We'll talk about our experiences and people will say, oh, well, I can't do that. I'm not like you. And I just smile and I say, no, you're exactly like me. And to try to help people understand that we all have these abilities. We all have the ability to feel the energy, to communicate, to see, to feel, whatever it might be. And if I can encourage anyone, like you said, safe space. My why right now is making safe spaces for anyone. I've met fellow high school basketball moms who I found out are amazing, intuitive, incredible people. And all of a sudden, they're talking to me about this stuff because it's a safe space. And so that has really become my why.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I agree with both Mackenzie and Christine. I think my why includes all of the above. It's fun. It's, there's different layers to it, right? We went really deep in this conversation. There's definitely whys that are just fun and curiosity. But, just after this conversation we've had, I feel like my big why is just like seeking truth, but also knowing that the more I know, the less I know, really. I've been fortunate to have some really profound experiences in this life, whether that's, and I've also had some really big, um, traumatic ruptures with a version of spirituality that was really important to me for a very long time. So I've had to really find new ways and new avenues and new people who feel safe to me where I can dip my toes back into the mystery in a way that's very, very different than how I used to. And this is one of the ways I get to do that. So, yeah, I think I used to study and teach how to lucid dream from like a Tibetan Buddhist perspective. I used to study with people who are lifelong Buddhists. And yeah, the whole thing is really just remembering how unreal reality is. I think so many of us, we take things to be so solid and immovable, and these solid truths. And I think the more I do this work and the more I put myself in positions to be surprised and bewildered and mystified by things that occur in these spaces, the more I just remember, like, I don't know anything. And everything that I think I know about life and my purpose and why we're here, it's just like every day, it's just like, wow, I actually know nothing. And that, like, that process of being humbled is really, really sacred to me. And I feel like it alters my brain chemistry that helps me be like a better person. So I would say that's my big why. In addition to, helping educate people and creating, like Christine said, like safe spaces and just like exploring and being playful. I think like at the root of it all, it's just like just to remember like how incredible life is and how little we really know. And how, yeah, how helpful it is to live really from like that place.
And I think my why for me has always kind of been easy. I think people my whole life have kind of looked at me as like morbid because I've always had this fascination with death and it's the afterlife. But I think really for me, it's like I'm just a detective at heart. I love a good mystery. And death is life's greatest mystery. And I just want to know every single thing I can possibly know about pretty much anything. So, I mean, especially something like this that has always like perplexed me and made me excited and scared me at a lot of times. I just want to know. I want the answers. And the other biggest part for me is, of course, connection with other people, and like connection with myself and connection with the other side. So it's just as simple as that for me.
Spiritual Sherlocks. For those that want to find out more about XX Paranormal Communications and maybe attend some of your events, where can they find out more?
We are on Facebook and Instagram. We are under XX Paracom on Instagram, and you can search XX Paranormal Communications on Facebook. And we post updates there with all our events as soon as we have them. We're hoping to have a new location to start doing some events. But yeah, we just come out, visit 4 Mile, check out our videos. We have some YouTube stuff. We're definitely trying to get more video. And I'm Gen X. I can't do any of this like new technology stuff. God bless Zoom because I can do this part, but that's about all I got. So we had to bring in some young people to help us with our video and all that. But yeah, definitely Facebook and Instagram. Check us out. And we always post our events on there. And, we've had people reach out messages with questions if they have stuff going on. We can't always help, we don't cleanse houses. There's a lot of stuff that people need that we don't do. But I think in general, when people send us messages, we can just give them some guidance if they're having issues and let them know how we might approach a situation that they might be dealing with.
Ooh, this was a very heavy in a good way episode, and I don't know, just I loved the passion and you could tell that everything that you guys are doing, it's coming from a place of just love and community and just trying to and curiosity, and I think that's generally what people should do when they're getting into this stuff. You're not getting into it to get famous. You're not getting into it to, for your own, I don't know. I mean, it can be fun too. It's everything. And I think that's the way to go into it. Just go into it with a positive outlook and, meet some new people and get some new friends and, try to understand it, help each other understand it together, because new people can bring in different things, and we can all learn from each other. And that's what I'm learning from you guys. Like, there's a lot of things just from your group alone that you're adding to each other that you can bring to the table that enhances every experience that you guys have. And I think that's great.
Thanks,
Thank you.
PJ.
Yeah, I think, and I will say, it is so fun. I don't think any of us would be doing any of this or sitting and talking. I mean, it's fun. It's fun.
I just want to say thank you for coming on. And I've met Christine before, obviously Mackenzie as well. I look forward to meeting Ayana and Lana at some point. I love the way you guys investigate, and the fact that it's all female. We need more of that in the world. Just saying. So
Preach.
you guys are amazing, and I appreciate you coming on and telling your stories.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. We definitely, we love those collaborations with other groups and investigating, and we hope to have some of that in the future too. Because BJ, it was a blast up there in Cheyenne.
Yeah.
That was a fun night.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for creating the space for all of us to feel comfortable and safe enough to share some of these stories too. That we may not have necessarily gotten into some of this stuff if it weren't for y'all holding, such a welcoming space. So thank you for having us on. This was really wonderful.
Yeah.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. It is a privilege for us to be able to create this space so that amazing individuals like yourself feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable and brave and share your stories. Because even though this world of the metaphysical and the supernatural and the paranormal is becoming normalized, it's not quite there yet. So the fact that we have people that are willing to come on and be open and share, like really it's a gift to us. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Lana. Thank you, Ayana. Thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you, XX Paranormal. And to the sisterhood, BJ Segura, do you want to bring us home?
Yes, of course. Again, just to reiterate, this was just a lot of fun. We are so lucky to be able to do what we do with all the people that we get to meet, especially in our own backyard in Colorado, which is really pretty awesome. So I'm looking forward to the times when we can do that some more and in person. And for those of you that are in Colorado, look out for the events. 100%. It's going to be some fun 2026, right?
Yes.
So let's have some fun. All right. So thank you for tuning in to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your hosts. I'm BJ Segura.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
I'm John Thomas.
If you have any questions, comments, or episode suggestions, please feel free to email us at 3hauntedpodcast@gmail.com. If you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all our social media. You don't want to miss our amazing guests like these ladies here, Christine, Lana, Ayana, and Mackenzie.
Also, if you haven't done so already, please check out 300podcast.com, where you'll find all of our past and current season episodes, as well as guest information and all kinds of awesome merch.
Until next time.